Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the SummerSlam Rewind Series, where I go back this entire month and rewatch every single SummerSlam and do a video on here. But before we get to that, friendly reminder that Bluechew wants to sponsor your SummerSlam. If your dong can't be seen, the time is now. Go from ball buster to blockbuster with Bluechew. Bluechew is the chewable tablet that helps you have better sex. Make sure to check out the link in the description box below and use that promo code Denise. All right, I want to start off by saying that SummerSlam 2008 was definitely better than the last two SummerSlams that we had. It wasn't like a gigantic increase. I didn't love it as much as some of my previous ones, but it was still better. So that's good. An improvement is good. So the first thing that I want to get into is Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels. This was probably one of my favorite things on the entire show. And just to explain why, there was literally people crying in the audience during this because people legitimately thought that Shawn Michaels was officially retiring. They thought this was it, guys. Now, of course, Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels had feuded before, but we were kind of back to this Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels thing because Jericho had started feuding with Shawn because of Ric Flair's retirement. He was trying to instigate stuff between Shawn Michaels and Batista. And at one point, Shawn Michaels is put through the TV of Jericho's highlight reel talk show. And so he comes out and he gets in Shawn Michaels' face and wants Shawn Michaels to basically give him the credit that he thinks he deserves for ending Shawn Michaels' career. He wants Shawn Michaels to say that Chris Jericho is the real reason as to why he is leaving and why he is retiring. So the craziest part about this, guys, is that Chris Jericho tried punching Shawn Michaels, but he moved out of the way. And I don't know what happened, but I guess Jericho's wife was in the wrong positioning or something. And she ended up taking a shoot punch, guys, a shoot punch from Chris Jericho. Now, when I watched this live, I thought this was what was supposed to happen. I had no idea until way later that this was legit. She got punched in the face by Chris Jericho. This is wild, guys. And she gets, knocked down. She's there for a long time. And, everybody comes out to come look at her. Shawn Michaels is giving her, the loving husband treatment and whatnot. And it's so wild going back watching this now, knowing that this was legit, that she did get punched in the freaking face, guys. And you can literally see afterwards when she gets picked up, you can see that she was bleeding from her mouth. And in this photo here, you can kind of tell on her upper lip and her bottom lip, you can see those two big bumps on her lips from that punch that she took. And once this started circulating, that's when people realized oh man, this is legit. She got punched in the freaking face. And so this was freaking wild, guys. So wild to think that this even happened. I would love to sort of know what was going through everybody's minds when this went down. So yeah, seriously, shout out to Shawn's wife for, really going through that and then continuing to sell it and whatnot. That's just freaking wild. But I love this because of the emotion that you got in this with the Shawn Michaels promo, people crying, Chris Jericho getting in his face and playing such a good freaking villain, especially because Chris Jericho idolized Shawn Michaels, guys. He idolized Shawn Michaels. Reminder that they feuded back at WrestleMania 19, and we got that whole story where he sort of turned on his idol, on his inspiration, on the person that got him into pro wrestling. So this one here just has so many freaking layers. And of course, Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho continued their feud after this. I mean, of course they did. So I love this here. This was my favorite thing on SummerSlam 2008, and that's why I wanted to jump right in and talk about it. The next brief highlight that I want to get into is this match between MVP and Jeff Hardy. This was the start to the show, and I was a little bit disappointed in this match because I thought it had a very slow start. It's not really the kind of match you would like for it to be in terms of, given that it was the opening match. I was expecting for it to be a little bit more fast-paced. MVP avoided the Swanton bomb, and he ended up getting the victory. And personally, I kind of thought that was lame. I didn't think he was the right person to win this match. But hey, that's what it was. And the next match that I want to get into is the mixed tag team match where we saw Kofi Kingston team up with Mickie James to take on Beth Phoenix and Santino Marella. And this was for both the WWE Intercontinental Championship and the WWE Women's Championship. So we did see the titles change hands here and saw Santino and Beth become victorious and get their respective belts. Now, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of things to say about this. First of all, I actually thought that the team of Kofi Kingston and Mickie James was pretty fun because they both, they're able to do cool things. And so I thought that they kind of worked as a duo. I loved the DDT that Mickie hit on Santino. It was just so freaking awesome. But Beth goes in there, she pins Mickie James, she gets the win for the both of them, and their reactions are hilarious. You literally see Beth Phoenix carry Santino Marella up on her shoulders. This was pretty damn fun, guys. And I just want to say, I was always a Santino Marella fan. Also, I do have an uncle that's Italian. So every time I see Santino Marella, I always think of my uncle. So I also feel like I have a very soft spot for Santino Marella because of the character. He was just so good at comedy. And also, shout out to his daughter, Ariana Grace, because she literally is, she's got the comedic timing exactly like her father. So shout out to Ariana on that. All right, moving on to our next highlight. And the next highlight that I want to talk about briefly is CM Punk defeating John Bradshaw Layfield for the World Heavyweight Championship. So the story here was JBL didn't think that CM Punk was champ material, called him boring for being straight edge. This was a nothing match where CM Punk retained, and you can tell the fact that they didn't have CM Punk defend his title in the main event kind of tells you a little bit of how they saw him as a champion in terms of they didn't really trust him in that role, I feel. And they sort of had him as a transitional champion, which is crazy that they did not see CM Punk as that kind of a level of a star, which is just freaking wild to even think about. But there you go. That was what we got here. So, really, nothing too great to get into. And the next highlight that I want to get into is Batista versus John Cena. So, what you got here was a first time ever match. So, just to give a little bit of background, John Cena accidentally punched Batista when he tried to punch JBL. And so Batista gets mad and they start fighting. And this thus then leads to this feud here. So, just a little bit of similarities here. At WrestleMania 21, both John Cena and Batista had won titles. And John Cena talked about Batista stealing the show. And Batista and him were on separate brands for several years. And so then finally, when they both got drafted over to Raw, at this point, it had been like 6 years in the making. They had been on different brands. So John Cena had been keeping an eye out on him. And so finally, you were getting this first time ever match. So for the actual match in the beginning, I did feel like there were some dull parts here. I thought this match should have been less submissions and more high impact moves. I think it should have been booked more like what we saw between Brock and Rock at SummerSlam 2002. I really wish that that would have been a little bit more of the style that we got in this matchup because I feel like they could have easily done that. But instead, we see John Cena weaken the knee of Batista, lock him in the STFU, but Batista does not tap to this. After some more back and forth, we see Cena go for a leg drop and Batista counters it with the Batista bomb and Cena kicks out of this. I thought this was really cool. So at this point, the match is definitely picking up, but eventually we do see Batista get that victory and it just works out, guys. Like, even though it started off a little slow, it did kind of culminate into a nice first time ever matchup. So now let's go ahead and jump into the next highlight. And this one is kind of hilarious because of how we even got this match. And the match that I'm referring to is Edge versus The Undertaker in a Hell in a Cell match. So, just to recap here, Edge was in a storyline with Vicky Guerrero. Vicky Guerrero was a GM, and Vicky and him were in this like love affair. Like, we got full on makeout sessions between them. They're gonna get married, but Edge cheats on her with his wedding planner, which was Alicia Fox. She was introduced as the wedding planner here. And so, of course, because she's a woman that is scorned, she puts Edge in this Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker. And Undertaker's not necessarily just doing this match for that. He had been taken out by Edge previously, so he was trying to get his revenge on Edge for taking him out. And so for that reason, that's why we got this match here. First of all, I do want to say a couple of comments about that Edge Vicky Guerrero storyline, in that when I was watching this back at the time, I really hated this. I really hated this. I just didn't feel right about the storyline. I felt it was super inappropriate. And I get it. Like now moving forward, Vicky was, continuing to work and whatnot. So kudos to her for doing that. But when I first saw this story, I thought, oh, this just doesn't feel right. Seeing Eddie's wife making out with Edge, like this just does not feel right at all. And so I personally thought back then that the story was tacky. I still kind of feel uncomfortable even to this day watching that, but I guess I feel less passionately than I guess I did back then just because more time has gone by. I don't know, but it did really make me feel uncomfortable. And even now, when I was watching it, I was like, oh man, like I was remembering how I felt the first time that I saw it. And I just didn't think it was right, guys. It didn't feel right in my gut. But hey, man, again, kudos to Vicky for continuing to work and continuing to get these opportunities on WWE television. As for the Hell in a Cell match itself, this was pretty fun. They got very, very violent. They end up fighting on the outside. Taker puts Edge through tables, which was very, very cool. We see Undertaker hit Edge with a concerto. This was really, really fun, really, really violent, and the kind of Hell in a Cell match that you would expect. Taker wins this match, by the way, but afterwards we end up seeing this was pretty cool. Taker chokeslammed him from the top of the ladder through the ring, which was kind of insane. And then afterwards, and I could kind of forgotten about the part that happened next was we end up seeing the Undertaker set Edge on fire. Once he goes through the ring, all you see is all of this fire coming out from that. So that was really cool to kind of see. And so yeah, Vicky Guerrero definitely found somebody to help her get her vengeance over on Edge for cheating on her. Wow, I thought we had way more to talk about for SummerSlam 2008, but I guess that's about it. So let's go ahead and get into these ratings here. So for best match, I definitely have to give it to that Hell in a Cell match. That one just had it was what it was in terms of the story, but I did think that the Hell in a Cell was very entertaining. And for the worst match, I unfortunately have to give it to this one here, which was Matt Hardy defeating Mark Henry for the ECW championship in literally 33 seconds, guys. What do you expect? When the match is 33 seconds, there's only so much that's going to happen here. Of course, they didn't have to do Mark Henry dirty like that, but hey, that was the matchup that we got here. So that unfortunately had to take the vote. And as for the official rating, I did prefer SummerSlam 2008 over 2006 and 2007. So I kind of gave it a little extra love. So I'm giving this one a rating of 7 out of 13. Still not nothing to really rock my world, but hey, it was definitely better than the last 2 years of what we were seeing. So, anyways, that was SummerSlam 2008. Again, in the comments, make sure you guys let me know how you guys felt about what went down on this show, and I will be back tomorrow to talk about SummerSlam 2009. Alrighty, and I'm excited to talk about that one and the next couple of SummerSlams because guess what? Your girl was there at the shows, and so I can't wait to talk about those and share some experiences from being at the shows themselves. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.